already most of them not particularly enthusiastic, to put it mildly, about participating in, like being citizens or being subjects of the Israeli state. And many of them now are like, they see no future, no hope whatsoever. So it's like Israel is divided, certainly, but it's divided in such a way so that like it's not like stopping the way that it's like barreling toward this, like, again, like this very like Third Reich style kind of future.
Yeah. This is coming off of Barak Ravid, the Israeli occupying forces' very own Barak Ravid, saying the IDF is going to implement humanitarian pause in the fighting in several population centers in Gaza starting Sunday morning and until Sunday evening to allow the UN and other aid organizations to safe access delivery of aid, Israeli officials tell me.
I also like the phrase population center.
Yeah.
That's like it sounds, it's such a, I mean, it's just insane military jargon.
Yeah. It's truly horrifying what we have done to the Palestinians and what we have allowed Israel to do to the Palestinians, what we've given Israel the weapons to do to the Palestinians. So, I don't know. There is no...
Wasn't there brain rot you wanted to show me?
Well, that was Umama Sume, but that's later in the day. So when you come back from lunch,
we'll do it.
Still live, that's when I'll do it. Yeah. Nicholas Hawaii says the UN, so the same organization that's being blamed by Israel for mass starvation in Gaza for not distributing aid, is now being entrusted with distributing aid. Strange that. Genocidal state in need of a Hasbara tune-up, which of course was bullshit to begin with. It was complete bullshit when they were like, they're not allowing...
Well, there was a Wall Street Journal story last year that just like was the big one in the Western press that said that like Israeli sources say...
I'm Israeli, and I can say there's a debate right now in Israel about the starvation. People are really unsure of how it happened and who was responsible, but they don't want people to starve.
Kamti baboker, I woke up and I see the starving.
It's insane that this is the only thing that wakes them up, but somehow it works. So y'all have to keep pushing. Damn, that's crazy. I guess like when you do see the rib cage of a starving baby that died, even Israeli society's like, this is kind of fucked up. We gotta, because like it's such a 1-to-1 for the Holocaust, dude. It is such a fucking 1-to-1. Like there is literally the exact same like starving baby images from the Holocaust is a 1-to-1 comparison in Gaza right now. It's 1-to-1. I mean, you've seen the images like, and side by side. It's identical.
I mean, and also like Israel, like they do it in uniforms, but like Israelis are like,
well, the Nazis had uniforms.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like they've revealed, like they do all this stuff in uniforms, but it's like what they're doing is like the. I mean, it's these insane, bizarre, spectacular acts of cruelty that we're only not seeing, by the way, because because the government in that country had to run a national campaign to remind people that it's a bad idea to post things on the internet that might land you in, courts of justice. Yeah, I mean, that's part of why like the Hind Rajab Foundation and the work they do is, I think, becoming increasingly critical, and is part of why the pressure of this is adding up, because it's like, oh wow, prosecutors are like, detaining Israeli veterans in Belgium for waving Givati flags at a music festival, and it's like that is part of this pressure as well as the starving children. Like there is a I think that the starvation stuff is just like as a like this, it sounds like horrible, but I do believe it's the case that like it as content, it is something that is more touching to the people committing these crimes than like seeing the devastation wrought by munitions. This
is funny. I've been following the Hebrew Haaretz lib comments for the last year or so, and at this point, some of them are single staters because they prefer having a majority of Palestinians and a majority of Haredim and religious settlers negatively polarized so much against your religious population that you stop being racist. I mean, I don't know how much that
it's a phenomenon, and that I won't deny, but it is like not
probably marginal. It's probably higher than the number of people who are anti-Zionist, like straightforward.
Well, and Israel, again, it goes to what I was saying though before about like inequality within Israel, which is that like a lot of the anti-religious resentment is about like, yes, the control over like, let's say, like policy in the West Bank and so on that they've seen in Gaza that they've been able to exert through like the the kind of soft coups of Smotrich and Ben Gvir, but there is also like a real anxiety and frustration over all of the money that's allocated for like a bunch of people who never learn basic math to just study Torah all day and like collect welfare more or less.
Yeah.
Like that's something that is also engendering a lot of resentment.
Yeah, I mean that's been the issue in perpetuity in Israel and like Israeli domestic politics amongst the Jewish population is that, you know, you got these welfare queens that don't do shit.
This clip is nuts.
Israelis.
Trevor Phillips.
But I think that the issue here is we can see demonstrations weekly by Israelis against their own government.
Enough, mate.
And the point I'm really just making is, isn't it a bit unfair to say this is the Israelis as a whole?
Stop it. Stop it, Trevor. What's unfair is what's happening to these babies. What's unfair is that image that you showed us. That's unfair. 1 hour from, I've been in Gaza, I've been in the West Bank, I've been in Israel many times. What's unfair is that 1 hour from the hunger, people are sitting down to their unthreatened dinners to turn on the next Netflix soap. 1 hour. So if Israelis want to protest, get in your cars. This is very Bob stuff, I know. Sorry about that. Okay. Get in your cars, stuff your cars full of food and drive through that border and let your own army stop you.
That, or, you know, there's more unique and interesting ways in which many reservists who don't want to fucking tour again could stop that, could make a permanent halt to touring in Gaza. If you're a reservist and you're like, I want to get back to my marketing job and wear my capri pants and, you know, listen to the worst psytrance music ever created, then, you know, there's the conscientious objectors, and then there are people who could do the Vietnam route. You know, there was
a lot of people went to Canada. I mean, look, a lot of what Israelis are dealing with is that there is no Canada next to Israel that would take them.
I wasn't even talking about that. I was talking about. Well, I mean, to be fair, Vietnam, it took a long time for people to get there. Yeah. But
I mean, but at the same time, also like Israel. One thing that's a bit different about like Israel and the US in that context is that like Israel has had this draft for decades, and while like class distinctions within Israel do make themselves felt within the ranks of the army, within the units, I do also think that like a lot, like it's the like sense of buy-in that still persists. I mean, even among people in Israel who might know
Israel's Canada is Cyprus.
That's what I thought. I was almost said that. I thought about that, but then like that, it's because like, you know, if you're in Israel and you're like, you know, if you're in Israel and you want to get like gay married or
and
like,
you got to go to Cyprus.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, Israelis, like I still see like Israelis post vacation content from Cyprus because I think that's also one of the few safe places for them to go at this point.
Yeah.
But I think that it is like the Israeli army is again like it's the like a lot of stuff would have to happen, I think, before you get to the point where stuff like fragging becomes like an active conversation.
Yeah. Which I didn't bring up at all. I was just saying, you know,
I brought it up.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up. I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. Oh yeah, Mehdi Hassan or Senator Cory Booker, witnessing the catastrophic hunger and suffering of civilians, especially children, women, the sick and elderly in Gaza has been heartbreaking. The crisis in Gaza must be met with an immediate and drastic surge in life-saving resources such as desperately needed food, water, and medicine inducing. We're all trying to find out the guy who did this. Like, who could it be that allowed this to happen in the Democratic Party, in the Republican Party? Like, how did this happen? It just must have happened magically overnight.
You saw the photo of him trying to hide, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was...
It's our collective moral duty to ensure that humanitarian relief reaches those who need it most urgently. The strategy of Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has not worked. Oh, well, I would say it has worked because the goal was to murder Palestinians desperately seeking aid in 3 fucking aid
Wait, I'm
zones.
sorry. You're telling me that hiring a bunch of like roided out mercenaries to like just distribute aid to not effectively distribute the aid? I'm shocked.
Yeah. Very odd to acknowledge that a country is intentionally starving millions, then calling them an ally. Maybe Rose being descriptive and not normative, but shouldn't the U.S. not be allies with states that use child starvation as a weapon by definition? Isn't this the take-home lesson here? Yeah, I'm sick of the tired platitude. For an ally like Israel, we must not disagree publicly or in the media, not when there's mass starvation. This is the time for every American to speak up publicly. Prime Minister Netanyahu, let in the food, medicine, and aid. We must not be complicit.
What does that mean? We must not be, must not be?
I mean, what are we? I think
that's not a thing we can negotiate anymore. It's not a negotiable piece of
I need the
this.
Thomas Masseys of Congress to start entertaining the notion of like military intervention in Israel, so that these guys will then be like, maybe we should stop the genocide.
That actually, the first that's right. Thomas Massey probably would be the there are a couple like the first to like get a bill through that's like essentially like not just like about cutting off aid, not just about like not like it's like downgrading the alliance to unfriendly relations, and also like threatening to like send the 82nd Airborne or whatever.
Someone needs to start entertaining that in a position of power, even if they know that it's not going to go anywhere. So the rest of the people have an expanded permission structure to be like, well, okay, military intervention seems a bridge too far. So what we have to do is cut off all offensive and defensive weapons, you know? And yes, I do not believe a Democrat would ever say that. So that's why I'm saying Thomas Massey could be the guy.
Because Thomas Massey he would do that.
Yeah, I could see him saying that. So if any Thomas Massey staffers are in the chat right now, you know, go talk to your boy. See if he entertains something like that. I feel like they would just kill him if he
yeah, they would be like, Representative he gets called into the principal's office. Or no, it's like the scene from Goodfellas where it's like Joe Pesci walks into the room, is like, oh fuck, and just gets immediately plugged from behind.
Yeah, that's Pegasus instantly. Instantly, Thomas Massey, Pegasus. Here's a laptop camera of him like masturbating to whatever kind of fucking.
Well, this is you raised though an actual interesting point I've thought about, which is again like the question of like what would be a good pretext for the diplomatic rupture between Jerusalem and Washington, and to me the answer clearly is like when it is revealed that even more than has been demonstrated to be done in the past, that Israel is like actively spying on, surveilling, hacking, and trying to, you know, covertly fuck with American politicians, like elected officials.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, if that's revealed that they're doing that to like AOC or Ilhan Omar, fine, nobody cares. But again, if they did it to, if like they do it to like a lib, a normal, or they do it to a Republican who's not Thomas Massey, which I suspect they probably do. Like I would bet that.
Yeah.
Then I think that would be a pretty good pretext.
Yeah, like Cory Booker.
Yeah, Cory Booker doing a front-facing camera video. I've just learned that my friend Benjamin Netanyahu has been spying.
Yeah, the strategy of Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has not worked. We must do all we can to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza as a part of the strategy to save lives, decrease Hamas's influence and capabilities, release all remaining hostages, strengthen Israel's security, and ultimately end this war. These goals are not mutually exclusive. Rather, they go hand in hand. Of course, here it is. That very same Cory Booker. And I mean, even as recently as fucking like what last week was he when Benjamin Netanyahu was in DC doing media spots with the Nelk boys. In between that, he was visiting. He was visited by a gaggle of congresspersons from both parties. It was 2 weeks ago. Cory Booker was there. Could you have not potentially talked about that? Also, here's Channel 12, apparently, for the first time ever, mainstream Israeli TV has covered the hunger in Gaza. So I guess that's the reason why Israeli society is like in a state of panic as well. Not out of like self-preservation in the way that like cynical liberal Zionists do when they say like, oh, you know, we have to do it right with our beautiful secular IDF. But instead, like, maybe there is definitely, maybe there is people who are just looking at this and going, I don't think this is appropriate. This looks a little too close to the Holocaust. And it has to be stated, I'm not relying on reports out of the Gaza Strip. I speak daily with quite a few Gazans, and I can tell you about what they tell me personally over the phone. People who haven't eaten for days, nothing goes into their mouths for entire days. When they do eat, the offer is horribly meager. For example, it might be just lentils for days on end. We're talking about weakness, dizziness, people reporting that they've lost dozens of kilos. And I have to tell you, while responsibility, of course, lies with... Of course, the responsibility lies with Hamas.
Of course, the responsibility lies with the party that has no power whatsoever to let in aid.
Yeah.
No ability whatsoever. The responsibility lies with them.
Yeah, because Hamas, they're there. And
but Gam also Israel.
Yeah, they could potentially eat some of the aid, which is why we have to keep starving children and keep killing them. But it also lies with Israel, he says. Wow. In this sense, it must be sad, in the bluntness, most unequivocal way, even if enough humanitarian aid gets into Gaza, and that's what they'll tell you in Israel, even when enough food enters the Gaza Strip, and it's true, it may very well be true. The problem is in the distribution mechanism. It's broken. It's failed. So tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands ultimately do not get the food. To get any food in those distribution hubs in southern Gaza, you need to be a man, a strong man, and also be bulletproof as well. And also, not only bulletproof, but also tank shells can't
Well, it sounds
kill
like
you.
what he's winding up to say is that like you have to be willing to like fight against a mob to get it.
Yeah, and willing to go in and fight in order to get food, and even then you might not succeed. People in northern Gaza have a very hard time getting food. In the markets, it must be said, the prices, in my opinion, are the most expensive on the face of the earth. This is true. There's no place in the world where prices are so high. And remember, we're talking about Gaza, where people there are focused on only one thing, 24 hours a day, looking for food, and simply can't get it. That's the situation. We need to grasp reality as it is. Yeah. It's, the way I see it is like, that's the last part of this equation is the whole like, but Hamas narrative needs to fucking go away. And once that goes away, it's over. It's
because
done.
like, that's the only thing that's like got people left is that it's like, oh, well, there is somebody even worse than Israel in this situation. And it's Hamas. And that like, once you've already given up the idea, it's like, all right, like, well, Hamas at this point is like not like really like a like they don't pose like an active security threat to Israel.
Yeah.
And to the extent that they're resisting, it's pretty clearly because Israel continues active military operations that result in constant loss of civilian life.
Yeah.
So there's no like all that's left is holding people is the fact that like Hamas, you know, kids books or whatever like are like inappropriate. That's the extent of it, but I'm not even gonna like bother
from. And that does unironically stem from unlimited Islamophobia and also like the decades of dehumanization of the Palestinian population in general, because like it's a way to say all Arabs or all Palestinians without saying it. That's precisely what they're doing, and that's the intention, and that's precisely why like when Israel does this kind of thing. There are still plenty of people who go, well, they kind of deserve it. You know, people act as though there is a world of difference between someone saying, oh, innocent civilians deserve to live, but Hamas, and people who say there are no innocent civilians because Hamas. There is functionally no difference. And there is no difference within the Israeli calculation, like the Israeli military calculation, and there's certainly no difference within that framework as well, like within the way that people propagandize here, where they go, oh, dude, you just gotta, what can you do? You gotta starve some people, otherwise Hamas. That's it.
Was intercepted in international waters. Video footage showed activists on board with their hands up as soldiers took control before the feed cut out.
This is interesting, though. New York Times, no proof Hamas routinely stole UN aid, Israeli military officials say. Like, this is internal. We were talking about this off stream last night. Like, this seems like internal conflict within, like, the secular side of the IDF versus, like, the religious forces in the country.
I mean, it is also because if you end up, like, if you have reached the point where you're now at like Gazans, like there's no more food left in Gaza. There's no more ability for, you know, Gaza. Like you can't say that this, like Hamas is what's the problem in the food distribution anymore. And people are dying to know, literally dying to know, like, well, then what is it? What is going on? And what was wrong before that we had to upset this? Like, eventually, yeah, the New York Times probably is going to be able to get a couple of people to say
it's not the New York Times. It's Israel that is saying.
No, but I'm
that.
saying
that's
like,
why I'm saying it's interesting.
But I'm saying that the New York Times is able to get, in this case, 4 on background quotes from Israeli officials who are communicating this. And they're evidently officials of such seniority or authority that that the New York Times is willing to, willing to run with it on their say-so. In direct contradiction with what the Wall Street Journal and other outlets reported last year, citing what else? On background Israeli government and military officials.
Dude, by the way, there is something so fucking gross that, like, I'm not trying to be like Mr. Woke here, but there's something so openly supremacist about the New York Times refusing to ever cover the Palestinian perspective, or when they do, say it's a Hamas perspective, it's a terrorist perspective, and then only accepting the framework when it's Israel that says it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's great. Like, do you think, I mean, it's like
every humanitarian aid organization, every single fucking Palestinian and the rest of the planet, every single person that you meet on the street could recognize this reality, and the New York Times will not cover it until someone who's fucking Israeli says it, okay? Only then is it the truth.
Who's fucking an Israeli?
Someone
that was
who's
a joke.
Oh, okay.
I think the thing, to me, that's a piece of it at least, is like what happened with the BBC, where they did this like huge investigative thing. They had a huge story, and then they pull it. They say, we're not running this, and it's because the subject, or it was released, but then they pull it after the fact, and it was this, they pull it because, the person we profiled is like the child of an agricultural official in a Hamas-run government or whatever. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, the BBC has no problem whatsoever, like using as sources or using as characters in a story, Israeli, the children of Israeli government officials, or
or directly Israeli government officials.
Exactly. Like this is a double standard thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like, can you imagine Abu Ubaidah like going on CNN to be like, what are you doing? Like, they're fucking raping and pillaging our people. Like, of course we have to resist against them. Because that's the equivalent. And by the way, I'm not saying Abu Ubaidah is a scary figure here. I am stating that he is on the right side of this fucking dynamic. Like, there is not even a moral equivalence between Abu Ubaidah and fucking a random Israeli envoy like David Lammy or Jonathan Concuncrius or whoever the fuck goes on, Hagari, Rear Admiral General Hagari, going on fucking CNN. Like, he's literally on the right side of this, okay? Members of the resistance against the Israeli genocide, prominent figures of the resistance against the Israeli genocide, are on the morally correct side of this genocide. They are defending the victims, okay? That's it. Yeah, when is Abu Ubaidah going on the fucking Nelk Boys podcast?
Dude, I want to see Steiny and Abu Ubaidah link.
Yeah, link up and build.
They need to.
He's probably a fucking Zoomer. Like, there's no way I'm pretty sure he's like maximum like 27.
I mean, at this point, I'm not sure there are many people older enough left to take that job.
Yeah. He's probably got a decent understanding of I could talk to him about fucking who his favorite content creators are. I'm sure he has opinions on it.
He had that line about, like, I mean, I still think one of the things that a lot of people, particularly in the media, discount is how well Palestinians and how well people in Gaza understand Israelis and Israeli culture. And one piece of that is, again, that, like, when, the Israelis announce a new operation that
they're saying he's 40. I don't believe it.
And they say that, like, Israel's launching Operation Thing from the Bible. And, like, they're, again, they use the language. Ubaidah in that speech that was released recently talks about how people like they're using the imagery and the rhetoric of the Bible to mask like their Nazi activities, using that word as well. And I find that to be like these people have they've got, the leadership has they understand what Israel's doing. And I think if the media were ever to bring them on in that kind of clear way, they wouldn't have these scary people screaming in English like "death to the Jews" on CNN. They would be talking, and they would be expressing what they say already in Arabic and speaking to their own public, making the points about like the rot in Israeli society. And that would be brain breaking for a lot of these people. The idea that like there is I mean, I know that it certainly is for people I know whom I talk with in my own life about this, that like, actually, no, these aren't like, these people don't live and speak like a fucking parody of how you think, you know, Muslim extremists all sound. Like they have like a pretty sophisticated understanding of what the moral rot looks like.
And ironically enough, the ones that do actually speak the way that you think all like Muslim resistance figures do are and have actually done the heinous crimes that you attribute to like Hamas are now running the fucking Syrian government. Like, there are people like that out there.
That is true.
They're allies. They're fucking America's allies. What are you talking about?
Or they're like that guy, the fucking like thug that who doesn't know how to read and write, who supposedly wrote a Wall Street Journal
Abu
op-ed.
Shabab is like a fucking, the last education he had is like second grade, okay? He is not literate, and apparently he wrote a fucking column for the Wall Street Journal opinion. Abu Shabab dropped out of elementary school, can't read or write Arabic, let alone this fluent level of English. The Wall Street Journal allowed the IDF/Mossad to write an op-ed on behalf of an ISIS-linked gang leader and convicted drug dealer? The answer is yes.
And the answer is also that literacy is not a requirement to write for the Wall Street Journal opinion.
This is the Israeli newspaper, I-24 News, saying an illiterate former thief with ties to ISIS in Sinai. Who are you? Yasser Abu Shabab. He was previously arrested for drug trafficking and escaped from prison when the fighting began. According to sources, he was an arms smuggler with ISIS in the Sinai. He founded an armed militia in coordination with Israel. It's fucking crazy. It is crazy that like Israel has openly tapped this fucking freak and his brigade. Hamas is still smoking those motherfuckers, by the way, in the strip. And you have people going, oh, I don't know, man. It's just like Hamas is ISIS, right? Like, remember what Israel was saying? It's like, no, this guy's literally ISIS. Like, what are you talking about? And he's working with Israel. He can speak, right? What a dumb tweet. Yeah, he wrote the Wall Street Journal. He dictated the Wall Street Journal editorial.
He was doing a voice memo to their editors.
Yeah. So ISIS and Israeli